Hi guys, CenCo Prepper here. Just want to do a quick introductory video. As most of you have guessed, probably by now, I am a Marine. I come from a military background, a military family. I live in California. I'm a business owner, and I am a prepper. Uh, for the last 5 years, I've been prepping, learning more and more about prepping, getting more information from people, the local people here in the local area, and also information from people on YouTube. Most of it's good, some of it's not so good. So I wanted to kind of put my 2 cents in the community and see what you guys think. I will be sharing a little bit as far as my philosophy as far as prepping. I'll be doing some product reviews, things like that to try and to give a little bit of information out there and maybe give people options that are either prepping now or thinking about prepping here in the near future. But I think the most important thing I can impart right now, at least on this video here, is I think it's a particular subject that a lot of preppers don't touch on, and maybe it's just because it's not the philosophy of their particular channel. And there are preppers that do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm the only guy that come to this epiphany, but I think it's really important, and I want to start my channel out with it, and that is your mindset as a prepper. Okay, I think a lot of people don't realize, depending on what happens, and I am not. I do get to ask the question all the time, what I'm prepping for. What am I waiting for? I guess people watch the Doomsday Prepper show, and I know that's a question that a lot of people have because people are they're prepping for a mega volcano or an asteroid hitting them, whatever, or a pandemic, that type of thing. So. But what I prep for is I prep for any situation that would deprive my family of the essentials of life. Um, so we tend to stockpile those essentials, obviously water, food, things like that. The other thing too is, and something just kind of a little more immediate to myself, and something very realistic if you think about it. So if you're one of those people that's watching this video that kind of chuckles at preppers, I want you to keep this in mind, especially if you live in the state of California, okay? Um, Ever since I was a kid, and I've lived here almost all my life, ever since I remember grade school, there were scientists and people talking about the big one that seems to happen every so 100,000 years or so. And if you do watch videos on YouTube or if you talk to people, there are scientists that believe that we're overdue here. Okay, so if we have a massive earthquake here in California, we don't know exactly where the epicenter of that quake's going to be. It could be in your backyard, it could be far away. But let's say that there is a massive quake. Well, essential services are going to be disrupted. Um, Things like water, things like food, transportation, fuel will be disrupted, okay? And there are going to be some people that are in some really, really, really dire situations if that should happen. I don't think that's hard for anyone to imagine, okay? Um, but uh, I think when you put it into that context, and when you realize that, hey, this is something, at least in my area, and I can't speak for anybody else's area, but in my area, that is something that could happen, and not only could happen, something that at some point's going to happen. Okay. Now, if it does happen, and and it's close to my area, and essential services like power, food, fuel are down for a prolonged period of time, um, having your own preps could be the difference between life and death. Not only for you, but maybe people, your friends around you, uh, maybe even your neighbors or close acquaintances that you have. Um, Prepping may be the difference between life and death. Now, it is, I am under no illusions, even though I do prep, even though I do have a certain amount of food, a certain amount of water at all times, I do realize I may never need it. Okay? However, I would rather have it, okay, and never need it than not have it and need it, and it be the difference between whether my son or my nieces or my wife or myself live or die. Okay? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying, kind of making a kind of a roundabout thing as far as mindset. Okay, guys? If a SHTF or WROL situation happens, it's going to be a very high stress situation. Okay? If you're wondering where you're going to get your food for the next meal maybe, or how you are going to survive for water through the day, that is a huge problem. And if you have kids, my son is almost 3 now, okay? Um, I would not feel very good being in a situation where I cannot provide water for my son at 3 years old, okay? Scares me to death to even think about something like that. So that's why I prep, okay? But my mindset is simply this, that I can't walk around with the same attitude, with the same demeanor that I do now, because I will be in a different environment. Um, I would imagine if something like that happened, and this is just me kind of talking and thinking, I'd imagine if something like that happened, I think the first few days of an SHTF situation, um, I think people will help each other out. If there was an earthquake or some other natural disaster, and if you do any bit of studying, this is kind of what happens: is everything's okay, or if power's out, let's say everything's okay for the first few days, but then when people start running out of food and water, it starts getting ugly. And then I think you have to ask yourself, if you're in a prolonged situation, a prolonged SHTF or WROL or both situation, what you are willing to do to keep yourself and your family alive. I get the question all the time from people that are friends of mine that know that I prep, and they always tell me, if something like that happens, they're going to come to my house. Well, I don't necessarily prep for all my friends. I love them, don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily prep for them. And I've thought about this question. It's a hard question. I think it's a hard question for a lot of people. I think you have to think about what you would do in a situation where you're low on water, you're low on food, and you have a friend or a family member or somebody that comes to your house and says, I need food and I need water. And you may be in a situation where that food and that water is what you need to keep your son, your daughters, or your children, your wife, your loved ones alive. And what would happen if you could not give up those supplies, that food or water in that situation? What would the other person do to get what you have to save their family? Let's turn it around a little bit. What would you do if your family were starving, dying in an SHTF situation, and you had to do certain things to make sure that your family stays alive? And I think a lot of people don't think about that. But I also think that is the most important part of prepping, is having the right mindset. Okay? Now that's just part of it. It's certainly not everything, but I think you have to think about those types of situations. I think you have to be a little bit selfish in that type of situation. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be generous. I'm not saying that you can't help your fellow man. Of course you can. And, in a lot of situations, you're going to need to. But in that scenario, you can't necessarily just give everything away, because what you take and give to someone else may be the difference between life and death for your family, and your loved ones. Other thing too is, if you do prep, and I think about this quite a bit as I prep. I'm not a big bug out guy. I know some people advocate bugging out, which is fine if you want to do that type of thing. But I am more into staying at home, being near my supplies, or having a area that you can go to with stockpiles of supplies that you can go to kind of wait things out. Okay, I am not a big put it in your backpack and then go live off the land type of person. I don't think that that's for most people. I don't think that that's going to be a great alternative. Now, that being said, I do have I do have a bug out system, uh, of places that I would go and what I would do, and I do have a bug out bags. I do have those things, but I am not a big proponent of that being uh, your primary plan in an SHTF situation. Now, certain SHTF situations may call for you having to leave, and that's a different story. And part of that is having the necessary supplies that you can take with you in a relatively short period of time, because you may need to get out quick. So I'm okay with that, but I don't see it as a primary uh, SHTF scenario that I would undertake immediately. I would definitely, if I had to leave, if there was some type of natural disaster or some impending natural disaster that was coming, and there wasn't any way for me to protect my family other than to leave the situation, I definitely have a plan that I have supplies ready to go. But once again, it is not my primary plan. So anyway, you have to think about what you would do, and you have to think about what type of mindset you have to put yourself in an SHTF WROL situation. Okay? I hope that sinks in, because if that doesn't sink in, I don't care how much water you store, I don't care how much food you have, I don't care how many weapons you have, I don't care how many bullets you can have in your house. If you don't have it within yourself to do what is necessary to protect you and your family, all that's gonna happen is all that stuff's gonna go to somebody that has the proper mindset. You're prepping for someone else. That's all that's happening there, folks. So anyway, kind of a longer introductory video than I wanted to go, but that's okay. Um, anyway, keep looking for videos. I'm looking forward to doing this stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. If you want to subscribe or make any type of comments, all I ask is that you be nice. And thank you very much. And we'll be talking to you real soon.